Alright, hello everyone. So today we're going to talk about Asymmetrical Inertia Heathcliff as well as Devyat Association Sinclair. So Sinclair, there's a lot of things to talk about, but for Heathcliff is a very simple ego to understand. This ego, you want to get sloth resonance. You have sloth resonance condition here, and then you will activate your tremor clock winding, and then you have sloth resonance here in order to get your sloth fragility application, and your passive looks really spicy. Inflict fragility this turn on enemies who were hit by tremor burst from skill, coin, or passive effects. This seems to be just a passive, as in once you pop this one time, the enemies who are getting hit by burst will have fragility on them. And that is very spicy, even if it's only one, because this is a consistent effect. So it looks really, really damn good. For some reason, it also says does not start with ego gifts that inflict fragile upon triggering tremor bursts. I'm guessing this is so that you can't get a ridiculous 8 fragility from taking the broken bell in the ego gift in Mirror Dungeon, and then after that you get this thing over here. But yeah, whatever the case is, this is just to prevent some crazy fragility stacking. I feel like they should have let that happen though, because it would be really, really funny to just make the entire Mirror Dungeon really trivial just by stacking like 6 fragility, 10 fragility. Anyway, I want to see what the actual number of this fragility actually is before I say whether this is really good or not. But the fact that this is a constant passive of fragility application onto enemies as long as you burst them, that is really fucking strong. And it also mentions passive effects, so it's really meant for Ufi Heathcliff, because Ufi Heathcliff can only inflict Tremor Burst if he uses skill 3 at a certain amount. So what is this ego's purpose? What is Tremor Clock Winding? Tremor Clock Winding, if you have tremor count on yourself, like Ufi Heathcliff has built up some tremor count on himself, or he used the ego, right? Because when you pop this ego, you actually gain X plus resonance tremor count before you attack. So as long as you have tremor count on yourself, what happens is that you consume that tremor count on yourself to inflict X more potency or count when you inflict them with this unit skill or coin effects. So this is surprisingly very, very solid, because you are comboing this with someone like Ufi Heathcliff. So Ufi Heathcliff, if you just throw him into your party, he's actually kind of ass. He doesn't really do anything majorly. He doesn't apply potency like crazy, he doesn't burst a lot. He only bursts one time and it's from his passive. But now that you slap this ego onto him, it actually makes him quite interesting, just because if you build up tremor count on yourself, no matter who you are, Regret Faust, Mola, Otis, or this Ufi Heathcliff, you will be able to actually inflict more potency or count. So now Ufi Heathcliff becomes a support just because of this ego attached to him, right? And after that, as long as all of your allies, all of those I mentioned, have some sort of tremor count on themselves, they get to consume that and apply more of this stuff onto the enemy. Stacking status faster always leads to very good things. So this is a very, very powerful ego status to apply, and you just need to run him in a sloth resonance team to get it. And besides all of that, this ego also has sloth fragility this turn, and if you have sloth resonance, you will inflict sloth fragility next turn as well, in combination with a passive that gives you fragility every time you burst someone. So depending on how much fragility you're applying, even if it's 1, honestly, I will still use this, but depending on this number in particular, you would be able to get quite a lot of value out of this one ego. Looks like a very, very spicy, strong ego. Really, really very strong. I can't wait to see how much the numbers are actually, but this could be a core ego for Tremor, so just keep a lookout for this one. It looks really, really very spicy with all of this different fragility effects, as well as all of this increasing the stacking of your Tremor potency and count just by having the status on the opponent. Like, it looks really, really good. Okay. So that's it for this Heathcliff ego. It just looks very good. Let's talk about Sinclair. So Sinclair, we talk about the 2 passives. The 2 passives are exactly the same as Rodion's. Instead of slash power though, you are getting blunt damage, because this character here is using a blunt weapon instead of a slashing weapon. So that's the only really big difference. So that's the passives talked about already. If you know how Devyat Rodion works and all the retreat mechanics, all the stacking mechanics, then it's exactly the same as Sinclair. So let's talk about Sinclair. Sinclair is competing for position with a lot of other big boys, Sinclair, Sanclair, as well as Talisman Sinclair for the slot of Rupture. Because with Gluttony Resonance and you use Devyat Rodion skill 3 on round 1, you actually can get a crazy amount of stacking done, and that will basically make them online immediately. Because Rodion's condition is that if you have 15 potency 3 count, you do not consume Rupture count anymore. Sank Assault also the same, 15 potency 3 count, and then you don't consume any Rupture count. For this Sinclair, he's competing with that person. But if you look at the skills, he does not inflict rupture count with his on-hit effects. Instead, he inflicts defense level down. It does not particularly say, I will not consume your rupture count, right? So that right there looks to me more like someone like Fang Han Hong Lu, who is going to consume a rupture count even if you do hit the conditions. But he has some sort of rupture count application on his skills, right? So I really don't know about that. Like this passive here being like Fang Han Hong Lu, and I really don't use Fang Han Hong Lu. It looks a little bit sus already. So I don't know what's the plan here, because defense level down is not exactly a must-have status to apply onto an opponent. It does increase your damage by a little bit, but it's not a must-have. For Rupture, in fact, it's really a not required thing because you're just doing true damage anyway with every single hit. The fact is, this character here consumes Rupture count, and that is a bad thing. But this character looks interesting because skill 1 has inflict Rupture count and inflict additional Rupture count based on your stacks. So maybe they're trying to create a count character here. With skill 2, you can also see Rupture Potency, Rupture Count if you're at this amount, and Rupture Potency, Rupture Count at this amount. And skill 3 is also Rupture Count, and Rupture Potency, Rupture Potency. So it is possible that even though this character will be a bit negative when you hit conditions, or maybe majorly negative for all I know, but he does have the Rupture Count application here, here, and here. So maybe he's -1, maybe he's -2. I think the biggest issue is that if you hit condition, you actually disable this part over here. So that means that once you hit the condition required, it will probably not be even anymore. You'll be -3 count at that point. So it's really, really bad for us. So yeah, I really don't know what they were thinking with this thing over here. I will have to wait and see the numbers though. It's possible that this character will overcompensate for his rupture count consumption. So like let's say on turn 1 you apply rupture count, you apply 6 because the next time you go into the battle, then you hit with 3, you still have -3, but then you actually applied +3 in the last turn. Or you apply, I don't know, like +3 this turn, next turn you hit the condition, you -3 that turn. That sucks though, because then you would straight up be straight 0. So I really don't know. I really don't know what they're planning with this kind of design for this character here. I really need to see the numbers of the rupture count. He will need to overcompensate in order to make up for this loss over here. But this character, I don't know. He's competing with a lot of very, very strong slots, in my opinion. I don't know if he will actually have a place in the Rupture team. Let's talk about skill 3. Skill 3 is not like Rodion's. Rodion gets an additional coin, so he gets a 4 coiner. But skill 3 here is just raise coin power, so you only do a 3 coiner skill over here. And if this skill's effect to raise final coin power did not activate, you gain haste next turn. You don't really care about that shit, I think. I really don't know what they're planning with this character. But anyway, besides that, the guard skill doesn't have any conditions, doesn't build up anything, it's just a retreat button. If this skill is to be activated, you just gain this thing over here as a shield, and if you hit the condition here, you activate retreat, and then you will fall back, and then you will do the exact same thing. The passive is literally copy-pasted from Rodion. It is just apply clash power up, and then you give shield to the ally when he's retreating. I mean, this character here when he's retreating. And you last more turns based on career trunk Sinclair on yourself, blah blah blah. And then you half your career trunk value. Exactly the same as Rodion's. It's just this part here, that's the really sus part. He's competing with Talisman Sinclair, and he looks to be some sort of potency counterplier maybe, but the fact that he is just negative on the condition met is really, really bad. So I really don't know what they're planning here. Okay, so if I missed anything for this Sinclair here, feel free to let me know, but tentatively I think that this character here is probably a skip, just because of this part here where you are consuming your rupture count no matter what. You are consuming rupture count when you hit your condition. Before you hit condition, you may be positive, you may be neutral, but after that you are straight negative. I think that that's very, very detrimental to rupture. Okay, and then the last one is Heathcliff. Heathcliff looks really spicy. I don't know what to say. Like, this could be core for the entire Tremor team, and this part here is amazing for Tremor. It's an existing passive, and this part here is really, really nice for Tremor as well, for more Sloth Fragility bursting on the big burst turn. Looks really, really good. So yeah, this Ego I'm keeping my eye on. This character, I'm interested in the numbers, but if the numbers are bad, I will not be sad when I skip him, because I don't think that this character can fit into a Rupture team. Oh, I mean, if you want to use him in like Mirror Dungeon, then feel free to go and get him lah. So yeah, that in Mirror Dungeon really anything works, so it doesn't really matter. But outside of Mirror Dungeon, that's where I'm looking at Devyat Sinclair. The combo is just too damn strong. Okay, so that's going to be it, I think, for all of this. Feel free to let me know any of your opinions and stuff. I'll go and read them later. And thanks guys for watching. Bye bye.